The message flashed on my phone, its cruel words biting into me. I'm leaving you. I met someone else, Vanessa. She's everything you're not. We're moving to the Santorini. I could feel each word grow colder as I read it again and again. Sitting beside my mom in her hospital room, I tried to ignore the sharp sting of betrayal as the steady beep of machines blended with the hum of the hospital lights above. Mom's breath was calm, her fragile body at rest after a long, taxing day. Ryan hadn't even bothered to make a phone call. No, he sent me a text. It was heartless, indifferent, just like the last 3 years of our marriage never mattered at all. My name is Sophia. I'm 33 years old, and up until now, I thought I had things under control. My dad passed away when I was in my 20s, leaving me to care for my mother as her health began to fail. Ryan, of course, never approved of this situation. He'd always say, "It's not like she's your responsibility," rolling his eyes whenever I had to cancel plans or miss an event to be there for her. "You need to focus on us, not her." Looking back, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised by what he did. Ryan had always been selfish, and yet I believed I could change him, help him grow into a better person. I reread the text and, with a heavy heart, put my phone away. There was no point in dwelling on it any longer. My focus had to remain on my mom. When I finally left the hospital that night, exhaustion weighed on me, but it was the deep, aching sting of Ryan's betrayal that truly consumed me. I walked into the house we'd shared, now feeling unfamiliar, as if the walls had closed in around me. I let out a long, weary sigh. As I tossed my bag onto the couch, something caught my eye. My father's diamond necklace, the one he'd given me years ago, was resting right where I'd left it on my dresser. Or so I thought. I picked it up carefully, turning it over in my hands. At first glance, everything seemed fine. But something was wrong. The necklace felt lighter than I remembered, its weight not quite right. I ran my finger over the clasp, noticing faint scratch marks that hadn't been there before. A cold unease crept up my spine, but I dismissed it as exhaustion. Maybe I was just imagining things. A short time later, as I was unpacking, my phone buzzed with an alert. I glanced at the screen, and my heart stopped. Security alert. Item has been moved from its designated location. I couldn't believe it. The tracking chip embedded in the clasp of my necklace, a precaution my dad had insisted on when he gave it to me, had been activated. The system was a bit delayed, so Ryan must have taken it hours ago. The real necklace wasn't here anymore. Ryan didn't just leave me, he stole it. I tightened my grip around the fake necklace and sank down onto the couch. My mind raced with a flood of thoughts. Ryan thought he could betray me and escape to the Santorini with Vanessa, but he had no idea what he was dealing with. The truth hit me hard. Ryan hadn't simply walked out on me. He had taken the most meaningful possession I had. Sitting there, holding the fake necklace, I wondered when he had done it. Had he planned this for weeks? The idea of him sneaking into our bedroom, replacing the real necklace with a cheap replica, made my stomach turn. That necklace wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was my dad's final gift to me, a tangible connection to the man I had lost. Losing him was the hardest thing I had ever gone through, and the necklace was one of the few things left to remind me of his love and pride. Ryan knew that. He knew exactly what it meant to me, and still, he took it. I opened the tracking app linked to the security chip in the real necklace. The map showed the location, a pawn shop 3 miles away. Anger surged through me as my jaw clenched. How dare he? The truth settled in. Ryan had been plotting this for a while. The coldness of his text, his lack of any attempt to justify his actions, this was all part of his escape plan. But I still didn't understand why. I picked up the phone and called the pawn shop, forcing my voice to stay steady. Hi, I'm calling about a diamond necklace that may have been brought into your shop recently. It has a security chip, and I just received an alert about its location. A brief pause lingered before the voice on the other end responded. Oh, yeah. We had a piece like that come in this morning. A guy sold it to us. Tall, dark hair, seemed a bit nervous. Ryan, do you still have it? My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding in my chest. Not anymore, came the reply. We flagged it to the authorities once we saw the security chip. It was marked as stolen, so it's no longer in our possession. You should reach out to law enforcement. I hung up, staring blankly at the wall, my mind racing as the magnitude of the situation hit me all at once. Ryan hadn't just walked out on me, he had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible, by taking something irreplaceable and leaving a clear trail behind. But instead of wallowing in despair, a sense of resolve settled within me. He thought he could leave with my father's necklace and escape to the Santorini with his mistress. He was gravely mistaken. The very next day, I contacted the police, laying out all the details, the data from the tracking chip, the pawnshop's report, and the suspicious timing of Ryan's departure. It didn't take long for them to take notice. An FBI investigator was assigned to my case, and his reassurance helped calm my nerves, though only slightly. "We'll take care of it," the agent said confidently. "An item of such value doesn't just disappear." While I appreciated the response, it wasn't enough. The necklace wasn't just valuable, it was one of the last tangible connections to my father. As hours passed, I began to piece everything together. Ryan's betrayal wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. The fake necklace, the text message that arrived out of nowhere, and the pawnshop transaction all pointed to something far more deliberate. I started scrolling through his social media, something I'd done periodically over the years to keep track of his unpredictable behavior. That's when I saw it. A photo, posted just hours earlier. Ryan was reclining on a perfect white sand beach, sunglasses perched on his nose, a cocktail in hand. Sitting beside him, grinning like she'd just hit the jackpot, was Vanessa. She was everything Ryan had claimed I wasn't, young, carefree, and utterly clueless about the mess he had left behind. The caption read, "Finally living the dream. Santorini life. New beginnings." A wave of nausea washed over me, but it wasn't sadness I felt. It was fury. The anger surged through me, hot and intense. Ryan thought he could run away and live out his fantasy, leaving me behind, broken and powerless. But he didn't know me at all. I spent the rest of the day collecting every shred of evidence I could find: bank statements, text messages, and the receipts from the pawnshop that had been forwarded to me by the investigator. Each piece of the puzzle painted a picture of a man so desperate to escape his failures that he was willing to betray the person who had always supported him. That evening, I got a call from the investigator. "We've traced the funds from the pawnshop," he told me. "It appears he transferred the money into an offshore account before heading to the Santorini. We're coordinating with local authorities there to freeze the account and retrieve the necklace." A small smile played at the corners of my mouth. Ryan had no idea that his perfect little world was already starting to crumble. I shut my computer and leaned back in my chair, holding the fake necklace in my hands. The anger was still there, but now it was tempered with something else. A quiet determination. He thought he was untouchable, but this was only the beginning. The next morning, I walked into the investigator's office with a folder packed with documents. My hands shook ever so slightly, but I refused to let that stop me. This was bigger than just the necklace. This was about justice. Detective Carter greeted me with a firm handshake. "Sophia, thank you for coming in. Let's review the information you've gathered." I carefully spread out the evidence: bank statements with odd withdrawals, messages that revealed Ryan's erratic behavior, and even the pawnshop receipts. "This is everything I could find," I said, my voice steady. "He didn't just take the necklace. He's been siphoning money from our joint account for months." Carter nodded, his sharp gaze scanning the documents. "You've done much of the groundwork for us. This gives us a solid starting point." He then focused on the tracking chip data I had provided earlier. The chip signal cut off when the necklace entered customs in the Santorini. "We've already alerted the authorities there, but it's a complicated process. International investigations necessitate cooperation with local authorities." Surprisingly, this revelation didn't make me feel powerless. Instead, it instilled a sense of support, something I hadn't experienced since Ryan's deception. Our discussion turned to Ryan's latest endeavors. Carter displayed a record of his financial transactions, revealing months of meticulous planning. He had sold a precious necklace for immediate funds, but the bulk of his wealth remained hidden in offshore accounts. We initiated a request to freeze these accounts, hoping to tighten the noose around him. I pondered the situation, wondering if Ryan suspected our pursuit. Carter thought it improbable, noting that individuals like Ryan often believe themselves invincible. This overconfidence played to our advantage. Leaving the office, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, relief, anger, and a growing sense of resolve. Ryan's actions, though painful, had opened my eyes to his true nature. He was not merely selfish, but a cunning manipulator who believed he could trample over me. I was determined not to let that happen. That night, I phoned my mother to check in. Her voice, though weak, radiated warmth and reminded me why I was fighting so hard. She had always been my pillar of strength, and now it was my turn to be resilient for both of us. Before retiring for the night, I received a message from Carter. The case was progressing, and he urged me to stay strong, assuring me that justice was within reach. Checking Ryan's trend snap became a daily habit, a peculiar blend of pain and motivation. Each photo reminded me of his betrayal, yet fueled my resolve. One morning, I saw his latest post, a selfie with Vanessa by an infinity pool, her grin concealed by an oversized hat, while Ryan raised a champagne glass. The caption boasted, "Living life without limits. Santorini paradise. Couple goals." I scoffed at the irony. Unbeknownst to Ryan, his world was beginning to crumble. Detective Carter had informed me that morning that Ryan's offshore account had been frozen the previous day. Ryan was likely unaware, but once he discovered it, panic would set in, leading to potential mistakes. The following day, Ryan shared a story featuring a lavish shopping spree. Vanessa modeled a designer dress, twirling for the camera, as Ryan narrated, "Anything for my queen." However, the facade was cracking. His posts became sporadic and brief, hinting at his growing unease. Later that week, Carter called with significant news. The Santorini authorities had flagged Ryan and were preparing an arrest warrant based on our charges. It was only a matter of time. Hearing this filled me with satisfaction. Ryan had believed himself untouchable, but his deceitful empire was collapsing around him. Meanwhile, Vanessa seemed oblivious to the impending storm. Another photo surfaced that evening, showing them snorkeling in crystal-clear waters. I wondered if Vanessa knew the true nature of the man she was with, or if she was willfully ignorant of his schemes. The next day, Carter called again, his voice urgent. The arrest warrant had been issued, and local authorities were tracking Ryan's movements. Within 48 hours, he would likely be in custody. I hung up, allowing myself a small smile. Ryan continued his carefree lifestyle, unaware that his perfect world was about to shatter. Soon, he wouldn't be able to escape. His paradise would turn into the nightmare he deserved. 2 days later, the call I had been anticipating came. Detective Carter informed me that Ryan had been apprehended that morning in the Santorini. Local authorities had intercepted him at his resort. A wave of relief washed over me, and I had to sit down. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. Carter explained that the Santorini authorities were holding Ryan pending extradition. Additionally, he faced local charges for attempting to transport a flagged item across borders. Vanessa had not been detained, but there was a pause in Carter's voice as he hesitated to continue. But really, could anyone be surprised? From what people were saying, Vanessa had wasted no time making her exit. Finding out that Ryan's lavish lifestyle was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion, one built on deception and stolen money, was enough to send her packing. She had left the resort almost immediately after his arrest, as if she had never been there at all. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it, deep, bitter, and entirely satisfying. The woman who was supposed to be his way out, his partner in crime, had abandoned him the moment reality crashed down around them. It was a perfect twist of fate, almost poetic in how quickly things had unraveled. That night, I watched the aftermath unfold in real time. Social media was flooded with posts, updates, and speculation. One particular image, snapped by another guest at the resort, captured Ryan being escorted away by 2 officers, his hands tightly cuffed behind his back. The infamous designer sunglasses he had flaunted in every post were still perched on his face, but the confident smirk he always wore was nowhere to be seen. The caption beneath the photo read, "Chaos at the resort. Some guy got busted for fraud." Guess paradise doesn't suit everyone. For the next hour, I scrolled through endless comments and reactions. Vanessa had erased every trace of Ryan from her social media. Every photo, every caption about their so-called dream life. It was all gone, scrubbed clean as if he had never existed. Sharp-eyed followers were already speculating that she had caught the next flight home, leaving Ryan to fend for himself in a country that had no patience for criminals. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed with a message from Detective Carter. The extradition process has begun. He'll be brought back to face charges here. With the evidence we've built, there's no way he's getting out of this. For the first time since this entire nightmare began, I felt something close to relief. Ryan had believed he could take everything from me, my father's necklace, my money, my trust, and walk away unscathed. Now, he was locked in a Santorini jail cell with no way out. And Vanessa? She had vanished so completely that it was as if their whirlwind romance had never even happened. Sitting alone in my quiet living room, I turned the fake necklace over in my hands one last time. A useless imitation, just like the man who had tried to steal my life. Ryan had left my world in ruins for a moment, but now the consequences had caught up to him. The morning after his arrest, I woke to sunlight streaming through my window. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I didn't wake up with the crushing weight of everything that had happened pressing down on me. Stretching out in bed, I let the stillness sink in. Ryan was gone. And for once, the thought didn't hurt. It felt like freedom. The first thing I did that day was visit my mother. Sitting beside her hospital bed, I took her frail hand in mine, my voice soft but steady as I told her everything that had unfolded. It's over. He's finally paying for what he did. Her tired eyes met mine, and though her grip was weak, she squeezed my hand just enough to remind me of her unwavering strength. You've always been stronger than you know, Sophia, she murmured. I never doubted that. Her words stayed with me long after I left the hospital. Because she was right. Despite the heartbreak, the deception, and the pain, I had refused to break. Ryan had tried to tear my life apart, but I had fought back. And now it was time to focus on what truly mattered. Starting over. I took it step by step. The first thing I did was clear out every single trace of him from my home. His expensive colognes, the ridiculous souvenirs he insisted on keeping, even the clothes he had left behind, all of it went straight into garbage bags. With every useless item I threw away, I felt a little lighter. As if I were reclaiming not just my space, but my peace of mind, my identity. I devoted more time to my mother, ensuring she had everything she needed, arranging her medical care with careful precision. Each time I saw her smile, faint but still there, I was reminded of why I had fought so hard to put my life back together. Next, I turned my attention to my career. Ryan had drained some of our finances, but I wasn't completely starting from scratch. Between my savings and the money I had managed to recover, I had enough to begin rebuilding. Reaching out to my former boss, Rebecca, was a nerve-wracking step, but she had always been someone I could count on. Explaining everything wasn't easy, but the moment I finished, she didn't hesitate. Come back whenever you're ready, she said without missing a beat. We've missed having you here. Her words were an anchor, pulling me back to solid ground. Within weeks, I was back at work, immersing myself in projects that reignited my passion. The familiar routines gave me a sense of normalcy, but this time, I made sure to set boundaries. No more late nights catering to someone else's selfish needs. My time was my own, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me again. I also reached out to the friends I had drifted away from during my marriage. Over long coffee dates and laughter-filled conversations, I realized just how much I had missed these connections. They reminded me of the person I used to be: strong, independent, and unwilling to shrink herself for anyone. Every evening, I wrote in my journal, documenting my journey. Some entries were filled with hope, others with lingering anger. But every word was honest. Writing became my refuge, a way to process everything I had endured. Each word helped me untangle the chaos, reminding me of the strength I had discovered within myself. One evening, as I flipped through old photos, my fingers paused on a familiar image, my father's warm, unwavering smile captured in a moment of happiness. Sunlight reflected off the necklace draped around his neck, the same one now safely resting in my jewelry box. A lump formed in my throat as I held the picture close. "I did it, Dad," I whispered into the quiet. I didn't let him win. The next morning, I made a promise to myself. No more looking back. The chapter with Ryan was over. It was time to focus on myself, my mother, and the life we still had ahead of us. Just as I was settling into that resolution, an unexpected message arrived. The number was unfamiliar, but the name attached to it made my breath catch. "Sophia, this is Vanessa. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to tell you something. Please call me." I stared at my screen, a flood of emotions crashing over me. Anger, disbelief, annoyance. Vanessa, the woman who had stood by Ryan's side while he tore my life apart, was reaching out now? The audacity. My first instinct was to ignore her. But curiosity won out. With a deep breath, I tapped the call button. She picked up immediately. Her voice trembled. "Sophia, thank you for calling. I don't even know where to begin. I need to say I'm sorry." The words tumbled out, rushed and unsteady. I didn't know. I had no idea what Ryan was really doing. I let the silence stretch, long enough for the weight of her words to settle. "What do you want, Vanessa?" I finally asked, my voice even but cold. She sighed, and for the first time, I heard something that almost sounded like genuine regret. "When I met Ryan, he told me you were the one who wanted the divorce. That you were controlling. That you prioritized your mother over him, and that you had completely shut him out emotionally." A bitter taste filled my mouth. Of course he had twisted the story to suit himself. "And you believed him?" I asked, my voice sharp. At first, she admitted. But over time, things stopped adding up. He lied about everything: his finances, your marriage, even how he got the necklace. When I found out it was stolen, I couldn't see him the same way anymore. Her voice dropped lower. "I left him the day he was arrested. I flew home and tried to piece together the truth. And I realized I owed you an apology." A humorless laugh slipped from my lips. "And what do you expect me to do with that? Forgive you? Feel sorry for you?" "No," she said quickly. "I don't expect anything. I just needed to say it." She hesitated before adding, "Ryan didn't just hurt you, Sophia. He hurt me too, in ways I only understood when it was too late. He's a master manipulator." I didn't trust her completely. But for the first time, I saw what Ryan had done through someone else's eyes. He had used Vanessa just as he had used me. After a pause, I finally said, "I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change anything. I've moved on, and I suggest you do the same." Her breath hitched slightly, but she didn't argue. "I will. Thank you for listening." As the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at my phone. I should have felt angrier, but instead, there was a strange sense of validation. Ryan's lies had unraveled entirely. His world had crumbled, and now, even those who once believed in him were seeing the truth. But Vanessa's regret wasn't my concern. This wasn't about her. It wasn't about Ryan either. This was about me, reclaiming my life. I set my phone aside, refocusing on the future I was building. The call came on a crisp Tuesday morning. Detective Carter's voice carried a sense of finality. "Sophia, I have good news. The necklace has been officially recovered and will be returned to you by the end of the week." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Relief washed over me in waves, mingled with a deep, quiet sense of closure. "Thank you," I finally said, my voice steady but thick with emotion. "This means more than you know." "There's more," Carter continued. "Ryan's trial date has been set. Given the evidence against him, there's almost no chance he'll walk free. He's looking at significant prison time." Justice was on its way. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Ryan, who had once believed he could steal from me, deceive me, and walk away without consequence, was finally facing the weight of his actions. As I ended the call, I sat in quiet reflection. My father's necklace, the one thing Ryan had tried to rip from me, was coming home. Ryan had thought he could break me. Instead, he had only proven my resilience. I looked out the window, feeling something I hadn't in a long time: pride. I had fought through the darkness and come out stronger. The day the necklace was returned, I went to pick it up from the investigator's office. Holding it in my hands, I felt a surge of emotions. Relief, gratitude, strength. It gleamed just as brilliantly as it had the day my father gave it to me. It wasn't just a necklace. It was a symbol of love, perseverance, and everything I had overcome. That evening, I sat by my mother's hospital bed, the necklace resting against my skin. Her tired eyes landed on it, and for the first time in weeks, a small, knowing smile appeared on her face. "It's beautiful," she murmured, her voice faint. I squeezed her hand gently. "It's home." A thought took root in my mind. My mother had endured so much, her illness, the emotional toll of watching me fight battles she wished she could shield me from. She deserved more than just survival. She deserved joy. That night, I started planning. A trip for the two of us, somewhere peaceful, somewhere filled with new memories instead of painful ones. I thought about the places my father had always wanted us to visit. Finally, I settled on a quiet coastal town he had loved as a child. The next morning, I shared the idea with my mom. "Once you're feeling better, we're going," I said, showing her pictures of the town. Her lips curved into a faint but genuine smile, the kind I hadn't seen in a long time. And at that moment, I knew. This wasn't just about the trip. It was about reclaiming happiness, about proving to myself that the past didn't define my future. That night, as I packed up loose ends of my old life, a calm settled over me. The storm Ryan had brought had finally passed. And the future? It was mine to build, one step at a time.